Hello folks, this is Sula speaking. You're listening to another video for Teamfight Tactics. Well, it's the start of another new set. Set 7.5 is releasing today. But this is also the 200th video that I've recorded for Teamfight Tactics. So instead of trying to show some new footage for set 7.5 today, I have plenty of that from the PBE if people are curious. I am going to use this as a little retrospective and look back at the very first game of Teamfight Tactics that I ever played. I actually do have the footage of this. This is the last video that I did in my League of Legends series, and I have the recording of this. This is a game that I played together with some folks who had joined me for the League of Legends game nights I did. So with me here are Mark the Quark, XPL, Mithradori, and Droll Warrior, and then there's 3 random people in this game as well. So this is going to be a look back at the first game of Teamfight Tactics that I ever did. You're going to get to see some set 1 gameplay, so should be fun to see some of that. I'm going to talk a little bit about how Teamfight Tactics has changed, talk a bit about how I've improved as a player since then, and then talk a bit about the experience of recording all of these Teamfight Tactics videos now that I've done 200 of them and put them on YouTube. Well, the original genesis for playing Teamfight Tactics came out of playing League of Legends, as I'm sure it did for most people. I played a ton of League of Legends back in the day. I was a pretty early adopter of League of Legends. Started playing in 2010, which was, I think, not even a full year after the game released, and just played an absolute ton of League of Legends in 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013. Made a lot of videos for League of Legends. They got fairly popular at one point in time, to the point where I was able to do the casting for some of the qualifiers for the IPL games in 2012. I think it was IPL 5 qualifiers that I was able to do the casts for some of those games, which was a lot of fun, but eventually I really burned out on League of Legends in like the most the most absurd way. Just played the game to death and eventually just got really tired of it and just had to step away. So that was right around the start of 2014. Just kind of stopped playing League cold turkey, stopped recording any more video footage, just stopped playing the game. Eventually, I decided I wanted to come back and try to play the game again. That was in 2018, but it just wasn't really the same, and it wasn't just nostalgia. The game had actually changed quite a bit over that 4-year span, and I just did not find it as enjoyable as I had when I played the game originally. Basically, the game had just gotten much more fast-paced. I wrote an article about that on my website, but it's very noticeable that the game has gotten much faster in terms of its pacing from back when it first came out to the way it is right now. And it just felt like it was much more mechanics focused, kind of less of a strategy focus, more of a mechanics focus. That's not to say that, of course, that current League of Legends doesn't have strategy in it. Of course it does, but it felt like there was more of a focus on like sick outplays and every champion having 18 dashes and that sort of thing, as opposed to the kind of slower paced, more tactical game that it was when it came out. And I just didn't end up enjoying it as much. So it was at that point in time when I was kind of trying to play League of Legends again, but not really enjoying it that much. That's when Teamfight Tactics was released, and that's when Set 1 first came out. I was not someone who played Teamfight Tactics when it first came out. It was in kind of like this beta form for a little while. And, I knew that it was around. Obviously, I saw it on the client, but it wasn't something that I jumped into right away. And a couple of the people in this game had played a good bit more Teamfight Tactics than me. I think this was maybe like 6 weeks after it came out originally. And so we just decided one night, it was like, you know what, let's do some Teamfight Tactics games for like our League of Legends night. And that's where this inspiration came from. So I believe that it was Myth and Mark and Droll Warrior had played some of this game, but I had not played at all. I had seen a little bit of footage, so I knew like kind of the basic idea that you kind of make this team out of different champions, but I really did not know what I was doing here at all, and that's going to be very apparent in this game. But, if you went back and, asked me at the time, and of course you can go back and look at the video recording, I'll link it under this. I'll link it under this video for anyone who's curious, wants to go back and see the original recording. I would have been, completely open with people watching. I was like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea. I've never played this game before. I have no clue what's going on in this game. So, a couple things I'll mention here right away as we get into the game flow of this particular game. I'll note I have to apologize for where the camera is placed. The camera, it covers up the kind of rightmost unit in the shop, although I guess you can see a little bit. You can kind of see what unit that is that's in the shop. This is because I have the camera focused for League of Legends and not for Teamfight Tactics. In League of Legends, that's where most streamers put the camera for League of Legends because it kind of doesn't cover up anything on the interface. For Teamfight Tactics, it's better to put it all the way on the right-hand side because that little mini map, which is crucial for League of Legends, is irrelevant for Teamfight Tactics. But that's partly why you can't see the rightmost champion in the store, or at least not very well. As far as what I'm playing here, I am basically playing through the Noble trait. This is one of the set 1 traits, so I will just mention what this does for people who might not have had the chance to play all the way back in set 1. Noble is a trait that gives one of the units on your team. It gives them the Noble buff at the start of combat, and this is the unit gets extra armor and magic resistance and life on hit. So armor, MR, and life on hit. It is completely random which unit gets the Noble buff, and a lot of the traits back in set 1 were not very well designed. It's one of the things that we're definitely going to see throughout this video as I talk about some of the mechanics. The designers of Teamfight Tactics were, of course, new to the gameplay. They didn't know what they were doing either, and so a lot of mechanics are very rough here in set 1. A lot of stuff that's very heavily based on RNG, stuff that just doesn't make sense, stuff that's not very well balanced. You get the idea. So keep an eye out at the start of the fights for which one of my units is glowing gold. That is the unit that is going to get the Noble buff in that fight. Let's see who gets it for this particular fight. It looks like Fiora has picked it up. So Fiora has extra armor, MR, and life on hit. But, it's pretty RNG based, the fact that it's just completely random which unit gets that buff. It does not even have to be a Noble unit. It's literally any unit on your team. So Noble is pretty decent in the early game when you only have a couple of units on the board because one of those units is going to get a rather sizable buff. But it is not very good as the game scales on. Then if you reach Noble 6, it actually becomes extremely powerful again because at Noble 6, it actually applies to everyone on your team, but that requires finding Kale, who is a legendary 5+ unit. You need her to get Noble 6 in. So here we have another carousel. The carousels are, mostly unchanged from what they were, what they've always been in Teamfight Tactics, except there's one really notable thing. Note where my little legend is positioned. I'm at the top of the carousel. This is before they reworked it so your little legend was always at the bottom of the carousel. And because I'm so new to this format, I had no idea where my little legend is. You can't even see my name. It's actually cut off by the interface. So I just have no idea where I am. I was like, wait, where am I? What am I supposed to be doing? Am I supposed to go grab an item? And then I was like, oh, there I am. But I don't even get a chance to pick up a champion with an item because I had no idea where I was on screen. Yeah, not so great. As it turns out, though, I actually get something that's pretty good for my team comp. I end up getting a Lucian with a rod. It's just the dumb luck thing that I end up finding here. And that's pretty good because Lucian's traits are Noble plus Gunslinger. And this is actually going to be a decent unit to pair with Tristana because that will put Gunslinger in on the board when they're both there. I should also mention that playing additional Noble champs does not really do anything. Once you have 3 Noble in, adding more Noble champs does not do anything until you get up to Noble 6. So it's not again, it's a really weirdly designed trait. And it doesn't really do anything to have more nobles in. It's not like a lot of the more recent traits where having more star levels of a certain trait gives you an additional benefit. It's like, no, if you have 3 in, you get the benefit. Having more nobles in beyond that does nothing. Like in this fight, Lucian's the one who gets the noble buff, and it doesn't really do a whole lot in this fight because he's a little 1-star unit and he does not have the gunslinger trait in. Biggest issue for my team right now is I don't have any front line for my setup. I actually have relatively decent damage dealers because I've got the 2-star Vayne in the backlines there. Vayne's traits are Noble plus Ranger. It's like I'm going to put the Trist in, and what I really should do is level to 5 so I can play the Lucian as well, so that I can get in the Gunslinger trait. But really my weakness is my front line here. I have Garen, who is a tank. He's Noble plus Knight. Knight is one of the frontline tanks in set 1. It's damage reduction for your team. Then I'm actually going to level to 5, and I'm going to put the Lucian on the board. But Garen is a 1-cost unit, so he's not going to be very strong here. And my other frontline unit is a Fiora, and Fiora's not really a tank. She is, her traits are Noble plus Blade Master. Blade Master is a trait that gives them a chance to proc additional attacks. It's like a percentage-based chance. And oh yes, there was a lot of percentage-based chance things in set 1. So Fiora, though, she's kind of melee DPS. She's not really a tank. So I've got like this 1-star 1-cost Garen and then this Fiora for my front line. This fight goes well because Vayne has rolled the Noble buff. So like Vayne was tanking a lot of damage, but then she keeps healing it back because she has randomly rolled the Noble life on hit buff. And that's what allows me to win that particular fight. But again, that's mostly just dumb luck. I also had another Garen in my store I didn't even pick up. It would have been Garen 2-star. This is before they added the little interface doodad that shows when there's something in the shop that matches a unit that's already on your board. So there's like no indicator that, hey, if you click on this unit, you already have this unit. And I actually would have made Garen 2-star from that. Oh, well. Another thing worth pointing out from set 1 is the minions were very, very strong in set 1. The Krugs in particular was a round that you absolutely could wipe out on if you weren't careful. So people that played this, it was very important to position your unit so that they all hit the rightmost Krug at the start in order to kill this thing. If you didn't do this, then it was, as I said, very easy to wipe out on the Krugs. Like, look how tough this fight is. Even though I have multiple I actually have 3 2-star units on my board. And like, look how close this fight is. I'm barely killing the Krugs, even though I positioned for them and have multiple 2-stars. So if you tried to go into this fight with like a board that was only level 4 instead of being level 5, and like you didn't position specifically, it was very easy to die on this round. You know, lose to the minions, take damage, not get the item drops that pop out of them. So you had to be very, very careful about fighting those poor things. In addition, this was also the case that the things that would pop out of the minion rounds were very randomized. They've been standardized since then, but when they first came out, like you could get just kind of anything out of the minions. It was entirely possible for one person to get like 10 gold worth of, to get like 10 gold and then another person to get like 2 gold. Like that was something that was very, very possible to have happen because it was just basically random what people got out of the minion rounds. It was not standardized at all. So yeah, sometimes you'd get a ton of stuff that was really strong and sometimes you'd just get like nothing out of the minion rounds and it was just completely random. And people could even get like multiple spatulas out of the rounds. So they eventually went through and were like, okay, we're going to make it so everyone gets roughly the same amount of gold. So it's not like someone can get triple the gold of someone else, that in order to make it just a little bit fairer. And that is something that definitely has helped to standardize the game as it's gone along. It's a little hard to see here because we're only seeing a sample size of one game, but you have to take my word for it that in Season 1, what came out of the minion rounds was extremely unbalanced and could lead to wild swings one way or the other in terms of what you ended up getting. Another thing I want to talk about just briefly is the items. So I am doing the brand new player thing whereby I have no idea what any of the items are or what any of the items do, and just kind of slapping them on people completely randomly. So I have made a Zephyr on Fiora, which just randomly, because I'm just throwing items wherever. I have no idea what any of these things do. Fiora, the Zephyr still works the same way as it did in the past. There's no change there. But Garen has the Cloak plus, Cloak plus Vest item, which in this patch was the Swordbreaker in set 1. I've actually gone back and looked at the old table of set 1 items because I don't remember what these all do. Swordbreaker is a tank item, or so you think, but the effect is 33% chance to disarm for 3 seconds. So it like builds out of 2 tank items, but what it does is your auto attacks have a chance to disarm the target, which means that they can't then auto attack themselves. It's like, what? Why would a tank want that? That's really odd. So it's like this item that builds out of 2 tank items, but it's something that has an effect of disarming your opponents. Very, very strange. A lot of these items, as I said, did not make a lot of sense in set 1. So I have that on Garen, who does not apply the Swordbreaker very well at all. The other thing I should talk about here is in terms of economy. I have, of course, mismanaged my economy. This is very, very common for people that are starting out. When I went back and wrote this article about the common mistakes that new Teamfight Tactics players make and I did that a couple months ago, and I put it on the website. I recorded a video for that as well. And I was drawing on my experience from games like this. I actually went back and looked at some of what I had done when I had first started out games like this. So I have not managed my economy very well at all because I don't understand how the in-game economy works right now. I've been doing what a lot of new players do, which is to just continue re-rolling the shop, staying at low levels, continuing to re-roll the shop. And that's because I did not understand that there was an interest mechanic or how the interest mechanic works. Yeah, you see the comment from Joe Warrior here, Sully, you know how interest works. And the answer was no, I did not know how interest works. By the way, that fight is really close. I end up winning it because the Noble buff by dumb luck has gone on to Tristana, who I've managed to 3-star. The good news is I've actually have been hitting some of the 3-star units. I have hit a 3-star Tristana, and that's the unit that I'm going to be playing through here. The bad news is you can already see what's going to happen here if you're an experienced player of Teamfight Tactics. Eventually, the fact that I have no interest in my bank means that I'm not going to be getting any gold each round, and that I'm just going to get outscaled by other players because I have no economy. I have no gold in my bank. I'm just re-rolling constantly at low gold. And it's just because I did not know how the interest mechanic worked. Teamfight Tactics does a horrible job of getting new players into the game, and it still does. This is not something that's been remedied with time. There is no demo, no intro mode to explain to you how to play the game. There's nothing that talks to you about how interest works or things like how you want to transition from early game units into late game units. Nothing like that. Absolutely nothing tells you how to play the game. And that has not gotten any better with time. It's really kind of embarrassing that the developers have not put time into improving this because there's tons of players out there that just don't know how to play the game because no one's ever taught them how to play the game. Another thing you'll see here is another thing I identified when I talked about common mistakes for newcomer players in Teamfight Tactics. Note that I have just put in units at the start of the game and then I never transition to other units. I just once a unit goes on the board, it never comes off the board, period. And again, that's very common to new players at this game is they just once you start playing a unit, you never drop out of that unit, never transition, never look to move to different units, nothing like that. So this is very much a newcomer's game here, and it's a lot of the mistakes that you'd expect from newcomer players. So another thing that I was trying to work out here because I was so new is I did not know how to sell units. You might have noticed I took an Elise off the initial carousel, and that Elise has just been sitting on my bench the entire game because I have no clue how to sell things in the shop. I was actually asking some of the other players at this point in time, I was like, how do I actually sell things? Because I didn't know. As right now I want to buy this Lucian because I'm getting closer to Lucian 3-star. I was like, how do I buy this Lucian? I was like, I need space on my bench. I don't know how to sell things. How do I actually remove somebody because I want to buy this Lucian? But I can't find a way to do that. So I was asking some of the other players, and I think that at this point I finally learned that you need to grab the champions and then drag them onto the bottom part of the interface, which, by the way, nothing tells you how to do that, and it's not intuitive when playing that that's what you're supposed to do. Also, keep an eye on the matchmaking. I hit Myth in the last round, and then I hit Myth again. The matchmaking was bizarre in set 1. You could have all kinds of really, really weird things happen. So yes, I have hit Myth 2 rounds in a row, which does not feel very fair in terms of how the matchmaking works in this game. So nowadays there are protections that prevent you from hitting the same player multiple rounds in a row. I believe that the only time you can hit the same player 2 rounds in a row is if it's down to 3 or fewer players. I think that's kind of the setup there. So yeah, I finally am able to figure this out, and I can now finally look to try to sell some of these units. I have found a Leona in the store, which is nice. Leona is another noble. Leona's traits are noble plus guardian, and guardian was a trait that was very overpowered, at least at the end of set 1 when I was playing some of these games. Guardian was a trait that gave everybody that stood next to the guardian unit additional armor. So they would get, I don't know, I think they changed it in patches, and I can't remember how much it was, but anyone that stands next to the guardian unit gets additional armor. And so this was, and the other problem with that was you had 2 units that were super strong that had Guardian. You had the Leona, who was a 4-cost unit, and you had Pantheon, who was a 5-cost unit. So almost every late game board would just be Leona you just play Leona plus Pantheon because you'd get this super strong trait, and then you'd also have these 2 late game units, a 4-cost and a 5-cost unit. Together they'd give everyone on your team 100 armor, and they were super strong units in their own right. So it was really, really not particularly well balanced. Of course, I don't have the Guardian trait in because I don't have another Guardian. The other Guardian to play would be Braum, who would actually be quite useful for my team comp, but I have not found a Braum, and I do not end up playing him in this game. The other thing we should talk about is talk about the items I made. So I finally realized that I should be taking items and putting them on Tristana. This is my problem. I don't have my items concentrated on my carry. I should have all my items on Trist because Trist is the key unit here. I've gone ahead and made Titanic Hydra as Trist's item, which is another just bizarre item. It's bow plus a belt, which is now the Zerat portal. And what it does is you deal 3% of max health to target and adjacent enemies behind them. So it's kind of like, wait, what? You do 3% of your max HP to target? So it's like a tank item, but then it also has splash damage. It's like, what? And it also has attack speed. It's a really weird item that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So, I mean, it gives Trist a little bit of attack speed, and it does give her attacks the ability to splash damage, but not so great. The good news is I did actually make a good item on Lucian. I made Morellos on him, and Lucian's always been pretty good at applying Morellos. So that is actually a good item that's going to help me in some of these fights. Morello's the same as it's been. Apply the burn effect to targets on hit. So that's pretty good. It's a shame that I haven't made something more useful. I wish I had a more useful bow item on Trist instead of the Titanic Hydra. Anyway, I finally hit level 7. It looks like this is as high a level as I'm going to reach here. So it's Trist against a bunch of assassins on Mark's team. By the way, you're seeing a whole bunch of comments about kill the Pyke abusers. Apparently, Pyke was very strong in this particular patch. Pyke was an assassin. And you see, I just barely beat Mark's team composition there. And Mark was someone who had played a decent amount of Teamfight Tactics. And so he was playing into Pyke. And I think he was re-rolling for Pyke 3-star. By the way, I definitely should be changing up my lineup here. I have this random Gangplank who has the Gunslinger trait. I was thinking of it as Cannoneer, but it's the Gunslinger trait. But he doesn't really do anything for my team comp. He's not a frontliner. I'm not up to 4 Gunslinger, so this guy is not going to do anything. I should either toss in that random Yasuo, who is a legendary unit, or I should put in like one of the knights that I've been seeing. Also note that I make a critical error there. I sell the Garen. And I don't know why I sold the Garen. I guess I was thinking, oh, I'm no longer playing Garen. The problem is I need Garen if I'm going to play 6 Nobles later on. And of course, it's going to be hard to find that unit in the shop. So I 100% should not be selling the Garen because I'm going to need that unit if I find a Kale later on. Otherwise, I can't get 6 Noble in. And that's what would really make my board stronger. 6 Noble is what I should be looking to find because 6 Noble, of course, gives the Noble benefit to everyone on your team instead of just one unit. As I said, not particularly well balanced. You go from having one of your units get this buff and completely random to everyone on the team having the buff. So I would like to pick up the Kale here, but that gets snapped up instantly by Myth because, as you can see, Kale is the legendary unit in a Noble team composition, had a very powerful ultimate in set 1. People are probably more familiar with the Kale ultimate because they brought it back for Zoe in set 7, puts the invulnerability bubble on a unit. Once again, I am last pick. I've actually been doing pretty well in this game up to this point in time, but it's just because I've kind of lucked my way into some of these 3-star units, particularly the 3-star Trist. The problem is I'm going to get outscaled. 1-cost units, even at 3-star, eventually get outscaled by other parts of the gameplay, and I don't exactly have good itemization. I just have like random items in random places on my team, so I am going to start getting outscaled, especially if I'm not lucky enough to have the Noble buff go on a key target like Lucian or Tristana. In here, I also still have these items just sitting on my bench, not doing anything. And then I've got these why am I picking up Gangplanks again? I can't remember why I was picking up Gangplanks. I've got the Graves on my board and then these random Gangplanks. I do think that I finally remember to sell the Elise somewhere around here. And then I'm going to be able to make another item from that Rod plus tier, which was the Ludens at this point in time. It was Ludens for quite a long time in Teamfight Tactics. Anyway, so I'm up against XPL this round, and XPL is kind of the other one who's been really strong in this lobby. I know I've seen him a couple times before. He's the one who's playing this Assassins team comp, and I think I believe I very narrowly beat him the last time I was up against his board, but I just got destroyed that time because his Assassins were able to get on my back line, and then they just start tearing through the rest of the team comp. So unfortunately, my team is going to start falling off here. And there's not a whole lot that I'm going to be able to do about that. What I'll talk about here, though, is now that we've got a couple minutes as my team is starting to get outscaled here, I want to talk briefly about the experience of making these videos for Teamfight Tactics. I wouldn't say that they've been very popular, and I have to say I'm a little disappointed that they haven't been at least somewhat more popular. Certainly, they're nowhere near as popular as the videos that I recorded for League of Legends back when I was doing League stuff in set 1, set 2, set 3. I actually went through and looked at the popularity of my videos in terms of where the Teamfight Tactics videos stood in comparison to them. I believe I don't have even one Teamfight Tactics video in the top 500 most popular videos I've done. And yes, I've done a lot of videos over the years. I think the most popular one was like 510 or something in terms of popularity, had like 2,500 views. So needless to say, these videos are not really getting watched by that many people. And that's a bit unfortunate, because I do think that if I could somehow get the viewer count up, I do think that a lot of people would enjoy these videos, but it is what it is. I'm not paying to market this. I've had people come by and email or send messages on Discord like, do you want to pay to promote your videos? I'm like, no, I do not want to pay to promote my videos. This is just for fun. It's not a big deal. So it's not something that I'm looking to engage in. But it would be nice if they were a little bit more popular. Mostly I do these videos because I enjoy recording them, and I enjoy going back and viewing them later on. It's fun to look back at the games after I've played them. It's actually one of the things that I try to use to get better at Teamfight Tactics, is go back, look at the games that I played, and try to see what I did wrong, see where I can get better. And recording the videos often helps with that. If you've watched these videos, you've probably seen that it's very common for me to say, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. And it's part of my process of trying to learn and get better. So it's partly a teaching tool. It's partly for my own edification. And, it would be nice if more people were interested or could watch these. But if not, it's not the end of the world. By the way, look at how much difficulty my team has trying to kill the Raptors here. I remember how I said the minions are really strong in set 1. Yeah, you don't want to screw around here. Again, my board is almost entirely 2 stars, and I've got a 3-star the 3-star Tristana, and yet I barely win that round. Again, it's because my frontline situation is not very good. What I'm trying to do right now is to try to get to level 8, because if I can put the Graves on the board, I would get up to 4 Gunslinger, and that actually would help Trist. The Gunslinger trait is it's another one of the percentage to hit more than one target. I think it's like 50% chance to hit more than one target, and then it's like a Gunslinger 4, it's like 50% chance to hit 2 targets, something like that. I don't remember the exact thing, but it's one of those percentage to deal more damage to more targets, that kind of thing. So I was trying to get up to level 8 so that I could play an additional Gunslinger, which is not a terrible idea. If I can't hit 6 Nobles, then that's another way to play this comp. But XPL is just tearing right through me. He's now hit the 3-star Pike, and as the chat has said, apparently Pike was really strong in this particular patch. Like people saying can't beat the Pike abuser. Apparently Pike was really strong in this patch. His ultimate was stuns people in a straight line. Pike's had that ability in a number of different sets of Teamfight Tactics. So I'm getting outscaled here. I don't have 6 Nobles in. I don't have 4 Gunslingers in. My tank item, I don't really have any tank items. And my front line is paper right now. So I just get outscaled really hard. I have 2-star Leona, that's great, but I don't have Guardian trait in, which is a shame because it would actually be really helpful against XPL's Assassin board. Having more armor on everybody and clumping up in the corner would be quite good against that. In terms of the experience, also note that the XP totals are much lower. It was only 46 XP to go from level 7 to level 8. I think it's 56 right now. Most of the, and by the way, note that I hit, XPL and then I hit Mark here. I guess the two of them are running very similar boards. It's getting them a little bit confused. But the developers over time have increased the XP thresholds to get from level to level. And the reason why they've done that is just people have gotten so much better at the economic side of the game. It was just way, way, way easier to get to level 9. And as people got better at managing the experience side of the game, and the economy side of the game, it just was too cheap to get to the higher levels, so they had to make them more expensive. If you look at this game, everybody has done kind of a lousy job of managing their economy. I'm actually going to make another sword breaker here on Tristana, although it's actually somewhat decent on Trist because it'll get that disarm proc. Somewhat decent on Tristana. Still definitely not one of her better items, though. But yeah, everyone has kind of done a bad job of managing their economy. Even XPL, who's been super duper rich this whole game, I don't believe he ever gets to level 9 in this game because everybody is just rolling for 3-cost units and not actually pushing levels. It would have been trivially easy to just play strongest board, go to level 9, find a bunch of legendary units, and then beat us. But we're not doing that here. So I actually faced Mark and beat him in the last round, and then noticed again I hit Mark 2 rounds in a row. Remember how I said the absolutely bizarre matchmaking here in set 1? You would also get weird results like this. It's wait a minute, didn't I just win this round? Really? Didn't I just win this round literally the last time against Mark? And now I hit him 2 rounds in a row, and then I lose decisively. I'm not exactly sure what happened there. I think just a difference in positioning. I think Trist stayed safe in the fight the first time. and then Triss got jumped on the second time. So anyway, now we've got the carousel here, and there is a Kale on the carousel, so I was like, oh, yay, Kale, let's go ahead and grab Kale. Kale is a good unit to pick up, but now, oh, the critical mistake. Now I've sold those Garens back in the day. Remember how I mentioned that? So without Garen, I can't get 6 nobles in, and I think that I just had no idea that I had done that. Again, first time I played this game. First time I had played set 1, I did not know all the units, but that's going to prevent me from getting 6 nobles in. And yeah, that means that my board is not going to spike in the way that I would have hoped it would. So I believe I actually manage to get up to level 8. I think that I am able to do so here. And I definitely put the Kale on the board. I need 2 more gold to level here, so I should just sell something on the bench. But it looks like I take out the Vayne instead. I'm stuck on 7 Vaynes here. So I've got Kale on my team, but I mean, look, I'm stuck on 5 nobles. I don't even have Knight in. Kale and Garen had the same traits. They were both noble plus Knight. So that's unfortunate. So even though Kale is a nice addition to my team, it's not going to make 6 nobles. And I'm up against Drill Warrior, who has a kind of just a better version of the board I'm playing. Drill Warrior also is playing nobles. He does not have noble 6 in either, but he has 3-star Garen, 3-star Lucian, 3-star Vayne. He has correctly put carry items on one of his 3 stars. Instead of spreading his items out willy-nilly like I have, he has put all his carry items on Vayne. And that's going to be much more effective than what I have here. So I was like, oh, looks like I'm going to lose this one. And it is going to knock me out of the game. But aha, I've actually taken a 4th place finish because Mark managed to lose earlier than me. And this is how the tiebreakers were determined. No negative health, just who dies earlier. It was pretty stupid. But hey, 4th place finish. I'm going to take it. And I officially have a win in my first game of Teamfight Tactics. So let's go ahead and skip forward for a couple of minutes. Yeah, I put the little meme here. And that's so we can see how this game ultimately gets closed out. So basically what happened in this game was XPL had the strongest comp for ages and ages and ages. But then Drill Warrior managed to get a Kale on his board and got up to 6 nobles. Drill Warrior also has a Force of Nature, which is the +1 team size. So Drill Warrior's board has started to outscale XPL, but XPL had like 90 health. So it had to go through round after round after round after round after round so that Drill Warrior could like slowly cut XPL's health all the way down. Plus the game was stuck on 3 players, so someone was getting a ghost round every single time. And of course, if you win the ghost round, no health comes out of the total pool of the lobby. So that's kind of what was going on there. XPL's assassin board was just starting to get outscaled by the fact that Drill Warrior had all these noble units in, and also by the fact that he hit 6 noble, and then that allowed his board to start outscaling. So in this fight, Drill Warrior is in red and XPL is in yellow. There was also this other person who wasn't part of our group, Mango Puddings, and then they ultimately I think they get knocked out of the lobby right here, if I remember correctly, or maybe it's one more round here. But yeah, you're just seeing a board that's gotten capped out at a higher level. But like even though XPL is super rich, or was rich throughout this game, like he didn't make it to level 9, Drill Warrior didn't make it to level 9. People are saying Pike Abuser didn't win, but like even in set 1, it was not common for games to last this long and to go late into stage 7. So I wanted to cut out some of the time that it took to get through all those rounds. This video is probably long enough without that. So just in terms of wrapping this up, oh yeah, XPL was holding a whole bunch of Kales. By the way, note that when I hover these other teams, it does not show what traits they're playing. One of the annoying things about set 1s, like you don't see what traits they're playing, but XPL is playing Assassins. That's the main thing he's playing through. It looks like he's playing Void Assassins. Void was a trait that if you had all of the Void champions in, then they did true damage instead of like physical damage. So yeah, one of the most problematic, one of the most broken traits here in set 1. And then this carousel is going to have another spatula. Back in set 1, most of the carousels had spatulas on them. So people deliberately lost streaking to try to take spatulas was extremely common. The open fording into spatula was like one of the most common things you would see because some of those spatula interactions were pretty broken. But we're basically down to the final round of the game here. And really, this is just a case of the nobles board capped out at a really high rate here in set 1. Once you had 6 nobles in and every single person on your team was getting the nobles buff, plus having Kale, I believe that Drill Warrior makes Kale 2-star here. Yeah, managed to hit the Kale 2-star. Also has Yasuo in. Yasuo is a legendary unit in set 1. Had the exile trait, so he would get a big shield if he stood alone at the start of combat. Like, this is just a stronger, better built team. The itemization is better. on Drill Warrior's board. He's got the Force of Nature for +1 team size. And, you know, Assassins just don't deal very well with a team where every single person is getting life on hit so that they're healing back off the damage dealt. Also, the Kale ultimate too, the Kale bubbles, of course, provide the invulnerability. So this ends up not being very close, and the Nobles team comp just has outscaled the Assassins. So GG to Drill Warrior. Good job by XPL, but just could not quite manage to finish off Drill Warrior. And that's going to be a wrap here on the end of this video. So you're going to get a chance to see the interface here at the end of set 1. And you actually see a lot of the league interface that have been carried over and not updated, as well as the finish rankings not updating to reflect the end of the game. Took them a long time to fix that bug. Well, anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope if you're watching, you've enjoyed the Teamfight Tactics content I've been putting together. 200 videos is an awful lot. We'll see how many more I do, but it has been a lot of fun to date. So until next time, I hope you guys are having a great week. Take care, folks.